Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, crazy babies, to another episode of Jam Sessions with your host, yours truly, Joe Mykut. I have a really great author on today. I hope you enjoy the interview, and be sure to stay tuned after the interview for a few great book recommendations. Without further ado, I'm going to scooch along off stage and bring on our next author. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, crazy babies, with another episode of Jam Sessions. It's been a minute. It's been since January, and I'm coming hot out the gates this time with a wonderful guest, and I'm happy to have her here with us today. It's Miss MoPoetry Phillips. She is the owner of the for-profit publication house Regal Rhythms Poetry and the president of the nonprofit publication house Arts Equity Collective. She's also the author of the book we're going to talk about today, which is Equals Greatness. There it is right there. That is a book that is available on Amazon.com, and we are going to get to know all about Miss MoPoetry and that book today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. This is a great space, and I'm glad that we connected to make this happen.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we are super excited to have you on and to get to know a little bit about you and what you've got going on and your book. So we will dive right into it. As all the viewers know, I like to just get right to it. Tell us about Equals Greatness. That is your book. What is this book about in your words as the author?
So Equals Greatness, it really started as just a short story, my mini autobiography that was also titled Equals Greatness. Last minute, I received a notification from one of my mentors that said, let's enter the AWP, which is the authors, writers, very important conference that they have. She said, we can try to see if you can be the representative for Kentucky, because I was in school then, and, be submitted to go up nationwide. And I was just coming out of some serious situation and domestic violence and divorce. And I had written my mini autobiography and submitted it. And it got an AWP nomination to be sent from Kentucky. Yeah, so I was able to represent Kentucky and then go nationwide, which they selected someone else nationwide, but it's still a very big honor. And I started thinking about it. I said, I want to take that piece and then add 70 other poems that would kind of take you through a journey of my life, like from childhood through the divorce, through what happened, all the way up to a more positive moment in my life. So it's just a very full novel, kind of.
Yeah. So you said it's autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
Autobiographical.
Yes. So it does start that way with my mini autobiography. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I always talk about transmutation, taking the experiences that we have in life and transmuting them into something positive, taking control over what we do with what's been done to us, because we have no control over, as we know, what's done to us. But what we're able to take that and create with is a testimony to us as people and to our power. So I think that is beautiful. Now tell us about, segue into the cover art there. You've got puzzle pieces. What inspired that cover art and the puzzle pieces specifically?
So when I started writing my story, just to kind of take you to the very first pages of it, it talks about my lead-in is, as a child, I loved to watch my mother put puzzles together. I would walk past the table and analyze her technique. First, she would find all the outside corners. Then she would separate the very pieces of the puzzle into similar patterns. Finally, she carefully tried each for an adequate match. Every new piece was a wonderful addition that brought clarity for the final product. Pictures of mountains, blue skies, birds, and trees. We were careful not to lose any pieces because each was used to equal something much greater. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it's this whole, exactly what you said, about, taking those experiences, because, even though I'm a domestic violence survivor, would have never thought that I would have gone through something like that. But that was a piece of the puzzle. It led me to my work. Even as an individual artist, I do a lot of work with survivors and those who are in recovery. I'm a mental health first aid responder, a peer recovery supporter, and I support people through their journey as well to healing. So
I think that is so beautiful. And I mean, honestly, when you were reading that, I really connected the dots between the metaphor of you watching your mother piece together this puzzle and her technique. And then you even going as far as saying that she made sure not to lose any piece of the puzzle because it mattered in the end for the final product. And that being a metaphor for you piecing all the puzzle pieces together throughout your life. And no matter good or bad, they're all part of the puzzle and you can't lose them. You know, a lot of people, there's, you know, everybody always asks the question, if you could go back in time and change something, what would it be? And the answer really is, it's kind of like those time travel movies. They say when you go through the time travel machine, don't touch anything, because if you touch one thing, it alters everything in the future. So if you change anything, even a negative puzzle piece, then your puzzle does not look the same, and that means you're the final product. Yeah. So to remove any one of those puzzle pieces means to remove the fabric of who you are. So I got that. I hope the viewers got that. I really think that made so much sense. I knew when I wanted to ask that question about the puzzle pieces that there had to be an answer that was really awesome. And that was even better than I could expect.
You're the very first person that asked me that question. I've had several interviews. So thank you, because it really does. It fits in with the whole, not just the cover concept, life concept, like it speaks to a greater lesson. I love your metaphor too of that time travel, because yes, if we mess up one thing, if I would have taken away my experience that I went through with domestic violence, then I wouldn't be out here helping other people. And then that led to me even helping exonerees and people who have been wrongfully convicted and spent years in prison. When they come out, you know, they spent 20, 30, 35 years, and I take them through some writing therapy and things like that. It's all part of the puzzle to say, right, you move it, then I wouldn't be able to help them as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You know, I mean, it's cliche to say, but I mean, honestly, the brightest light is seen in the darkest space. Okay. And that's true. I mean, light is irrelevant within light. You know, a flashlight during the daytime does you no difference. So you need, you know, the darkness. You need the darkness for that light to shine. Hold that book up real high there, because that band is in the way.
What?
Look, I want you're coming out of the puzzle like you're a puzzle piece yourself. I love it. I just love that. And I really do. I'm not just fluffing you on the camera. I think that was a beautiful segue into what this book is about, and it was a great metaphorical way to say that. So really beautiful.
And now, my cover designer Sylvia Blaylock out of California. She was insistent. She wanted to read the whole book before she decided on my cover, and so I felt good about the decision.
That's important. That's important. I mean, you know, to want the art to display something authentic to the story, you've got to immerse yourself into it. And awesome for you to shout her out. That's really important for us to make sure we cross promote people. So beautiful. Now, what do you hope, which I've got a good idea from what you've said already, what do you hope people take away from the experience of reading your book?
The healing is a continuous journey. And a lot of people don't like to see it that way. They want to find like this perfect day where all the puzzle pieces will be there and everything will be, you know what I mean? But it's like, even with a puzzle that is finished, if you bump that table, you can lose a piece. Or you can mess it all up and it hit the floor. Like, you have to understand that it is continual and that there is so much hope through the journey. Like, even in your darkest moment that you experienced or explained about experiencing, those moments sometimes produce those little glimmers of light that you can look back on, like, okay, I wasn't alone. I had strength. Like, I may not have been in the best space, but I received strength. And even the things that I've learned about my childhood and how that kind of played in with what I experienced. You know, all of that was necessary. So I want them to just be encouraged throughout, but to have some real life moments. I mean, it goes through trauma. It goes through, not even sometimes we think of just the sexual violations themselves, but sometimes even being looked at by somebody that has pedophile behaviors. that creates something in us. It takes away an innocence, and it makes us aware of our bodies in a different way that we have to fight with for years and years to come. So being able to go through those type of experiences and articulate it so that we can help future generations. I want a mother to read this to say, okay, my child may not have been molested, but what if they were looked at wrong? And how do I explain to my child that if you feel funny because of a look, that it doesn't have to progress to a touch? You can let me know, he looked at me weird, or I just feel different when I'm in, or she, because she, you know, she makes me feel some kind of way when I'm in her presence. So it really is a good book for mental health and trauma, for encouragement. It has a lot of faith. So it ends with a huge chunk on faith. But despite where you are and what you believe, all faith is acknowledged, or none at all. You believing in yourself, whatever you believe in to give you strength, you can use that in this moment and know and connect with everything in here.
That's wonderful. And, you know, a couple of things. Number one is the importance of sharing this information. You know, we live in a world of censorship right now. It's strange. We all want our freedom of speech and everything. And the world seems, you know, it's disguised as wanting to protect you, but really it's controlling the narrative. We have to be able to, I mean, if I'm going to venture off into the woods on a hike, I would be better off to know that bears exist and that they can harm me, and what to do in the case I run into different types of bears. Some you run, some you play dead, some you show aggression to and scare them off, some you don't move at all. And knowing that information prepares me, rather than having that information kept from me and then I just jolly off into the woods on a hike. So, you know, no matter how hard the pill is to swallow, I think that it's important to have that information out there, so that, like you said, other people can pull strength from it and guidance. There's no one size fits all advice, but people can use your story and kind of generate their own path.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the censorship part of it, because Equals Greatness did not get the publicity that I wanted initially. This has been out since 2022. But what happened was I was setting up a lot of book signings. I had a book store tell me, okay, we understand this is about trauma, but you can't do certain pieces. You can't say anything. And I understand, like, if you have kids and adults, I would have, you know, instinctively known which poems to pick and would have played it safe, you know, to protect children. That's what I do.
You gauge your audience.
Yeah, I would have gauged my audience. But it discouraged me in such a way that I felt that my particular art didn't have a place. It didn't have a home. I just stopped trying because it was such a hit in the face of, you're not accepted. Your story is not accepted.
Well, you know, there's no way around it. It's another glorified version of victim shaming. Quite literally, to tell you that your story is, you and your story is too dirty, too difficult to swallow. Telling you to keep that within you and suppress that and don't share that here. In addition to just being insulting to your intelligence as a person, to not be able to know what stories are appropriate when and where, you know, and so, you know, it's just, that's victim shaming in general. And I've experienced the same thing with some of my own books. Especially I write children's books, and they touch on, it's told in a childlike perspective, but touches on issues like what you're mentioning, but in a very generalized way. So, you know, that's not okay. But then we share Disney movies where the prince kisses the princess while she's unconscious, you know. Exactly. So, you know, the Wicked Witch poisons the so forth, you know, Ariel gives up her legs to an evil witch because she wants to be in love with a man. We tell those stories, but we don't tell the stories about what happens to you behind closed doors or whatever, so that you can avoid those things. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry that you are up against that, but keep going.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what is one of the most impactful pieces? Speaking of the content of your book, that brings us to a great question. What is one of the most impactful pieces in the collection, and why? And if you have it with you, or even another poem, we would love to hear you recite it.
Yes. So it is a piece that The title normally shocks people when they hear it. So I get a lot of mixed emotions. But once you get into the piece, you'll understand. So I'll do a little bit of setup and then I'll just perform the piece. But the title itself is I Don't Want to Be Black. And what ended up leading to this poem, I was in the park, my mother and I and my 10-year-old son. And there were two little girls who were riding their bikes and they were going up an incline and they were kind of stuck. They didn't have enough strength and momentum to get up this incline on this path that went all the way around this little lake that we always go to. And my son, instinctively, he was very helpful. He wanted to go and he stepped forward because his thought was, I'm just going to give him a push and let him just go up the hill a little bit, you know, trying to help them keep going. But the parents were so far behind the perception of, okay, here's a boy that is, even though he was 10, he was much bigger because he's bigger now, he's 16. But it was that feeling of my mother and I at the same time when he went to do it, we said, stop. And immediately he turned to us and said, I don't want to be Black. So this is the piece. At 10 years old, this is
from the mouth of babes.
Yes. So I don't want to be Black. Those are the words my 10-year-old son said with tears in his eyes. He's tired of being viewed as a threat. 5'1", 130 pounds, broad shoulders, easily mistaken for a man who is Black, another Black man who could easily be shot in the back, seen as having a weapon even when he is empty-handed, seen as resisting arrest because he doesn't understand why he's arrested, seen as obstructed. Well, what is obstructed is his liberty, not wanting to be Black because there's too many things that he's taught not to be. Not wanting to be Black, even though his Black role models are hardworking, educated, examples of who to be. Not wanting to be Black, because even today it's hard to be Black and feel free. Warned that when in the presence of the police, don't move, don't turn, never run, don't grab a hold onto anything they could say is a gun. Warned, son, please watch who you hang with. What is seen is not always what is perceived. Warned over and over. So I won't be the next Black mother left to grieve. Warned never to become irate, even if he's wrongfully blamed or accused. The hands up, don't shoot, really means don't move. Because I was in fear for my life is the excuse they'll use. And even when there's evidence, that's not the case. Over and over, justice is refused. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
I want to clap, but at the same time, I want to clap for what an amazing performance that was. But at the same time, I'm dealing with the emotions, you know. There is no them and they. There's no they. We are they.
Mm-hmm.
And so when referring to the power that be, that opposition that we're facing, it is us, brothers and sisters. We come from the same place on this planet. You got me going now because I'm tired of living on eggshells and speaking politely to the population of people that need their way of life, their narrow-minded way of life to be upheld as tradition and to be unchallenged, because we must challenge those things, because the fact that people exist in this world today that feel like that about themselves, we are responsible. Yeah. Not only is that a beautiful poem, but I love you and I love your son and I love everyone. And I hope that for as many ways that people don't feel accepted or seen or even safe in the world that they're in, that I can at least be nothing other than an example of the opposite of that for those people, for anybody. And so that was beautiful. You just keep surprising me more and more and elevating this to even something greater than I could expected it to have been today. So thank you for blessing us with that. And I'm sorry that that exists. Wow. You know, it does also remind me of and everybody's struggles are different, but at the core, they're the same. They make us feel unsafe. And it reminds me of a time not too long ago, actually. And speaking of censorship and even kind of relating to your story, I was at a Dollar General. I went to a Dollar General, and this happens on many occasions, but they caught me in the right mood that day. And I was coming out of the Dollar General, and I couldn't have been more oblivious. I ran in for some bread or some mayonnaise. I'm living my life. I'm focused. I'm thinking about the trash I got to take out when I get home. I'm literally minding my own business. And then I hear it. And I'm going to say it. I hear it. I hear the word faggot. And I said, you got to be kidding me. It's 2024. Am I getting verbally assaulted?
Yes.
Right? I'm literally getting verbally assaulted. And you can find it on not to promote myself, but you can find it on my TikTok. I came straight home and I wrote a poem and I recited it. And it was very similar in energy to what you just recited about being called that. And they just caught me. And, a lot of times it rolls off my back. Like, it's ignorance. That stuff has more to do with those folks than it does to you. It's projection. We represent things about themselves they can't accept. So at the end of the day, it comes down to hating themselves for what they see in us.
Yes.
What they don't see in us.
And it's a real discrimination and hurt and pain. And that's fun because, and I feel you. I seriously feel you, because I had to learn to be a voice, even though I don't identify with being in the LGBTQ community. I'm actually asexual more than anything else.
Sure.
But it's funny because I had a piece that also touches that as well, because I had to stop feeling uncomfortable about publicly being an ally.
Yes.
I just did, because I felt like, and even to the African-American experience, if it wasn't for, white abolitionists who fought for us, we would probably still be in slavery. They started dialogue. Our voices were not heard. We were looked at as animals. There's no way we would have made it out of that without someone else saying, this is wrong. I know it. They're human. We should not be treating them like that. So it took someone outside of the experience,
right,
to feel it and experience it and say something about it. And yes,
and I think that's wonderful, because those are the points of focus that we lose right there. We always focus on what divided us, but we don't ever try to get back to a place of unity by remembering exactly what you just said. There had to be someone that come from the community of oppressors that wasn't part of that said no, and we don't highlight that enough. We don't give those people's voices just disappear in history, because we would rather focus on keeping ourselves divided. And I think it's important for you to say that, because I could never imagine what a person has to go through being treated the way they're treated just by the color of their skin. But I've gone through my own versions of things where I'm treated exactly the same, but for a different reason. So I can feel the energy. I can understand it, although I can sympathize rather than empathize. I don't have personal experience of it, but I have knowledge of the feelings. And so it is important, I think, to highlight those of us that are in the middle ground trying to unify both, because I think that's where the healing is.
It does. So. It takes compassion for both. A friend of mine, he's on the board of the National Center for Civil Liberties, I think, something like that, out of Atlanta. And he's an LGBTQ advocate. And he taught a workshop at our Survivors Ball, because I wanted to make sure that we were representing everyone that has experience and has survived. Right. And he said, if you're not close enough to get hit by a rock that was meant for someone else, you're not close enough. And that has changed my life. His name is Tim West. And we have to get closer to each other to take up the fight for someone else, where I can get hit just like you can get hit, because I'm protecting you.
That's amazing. I love that. That could have been more simply, but more beautifully said. When it comes to colonization and things like that gave way to slavery, it took away a lot of things from our human culture. We're not just the racial things. I mean, even the Native Americans believed in a different social system. They believed in two-spirited people. They believed that there were people that existed. Now we've diluted it today and turned it into sexual perversion and turned it into all these different sexual orientations when it has to do about your spirit. You're not just your body, and our social genders only identify who you are based on your physical attributes, based on your gender, based on your physical body. But Native Americans before colonization and things like that believed that there were people that had one foot in both worlds, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And not only were these people recognized, but they were celebrated. And they often held positions within the communities as judges or lawyers or counselors, because they could sit down in front of a male and female that were in a loving relationship together. And they were believed to be able to understand both the male and female. So they not only were observed and respected, they held high positions within the community, and they were believed to have something special within them. So when colonization came in and religion came in, that's when the idea of God created man and woman and so forth and so on. And, like we said, before, despite your religion, there's a spirituality to it that surpasses all the books that are written. It surpasses all the buildings we go into and worship. And there's a truth that goes beyond all that. And we all know it and we feel it, even though we don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, this ain't my interview. So,
but I'm enjoying you. I mean, and I seriously apologize on behalf of that person. Like, that was just ignorance at its core, to make you feel like that and attack you out of nowhere. That's just absolutely wrong. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you know what? I took that little bit of gasoline and I poured it on the fire and I said, thanks for fanning my flames, baby. Okay, so and that's funny that I just used that analogy, because my next question literally starts with, what's on the burner for MoPoetry now? So what projects do you have underway right now? Is there something that you could share so that your fans could look forward to it?
So my company has really done a lot of evolving, both companies, both the Regal Rhythms Poetry as a for-profit, and then Arts Equity Collective as our new nonprofit. We're really honing in on trauma-informed arts integration. So we want, 80% of our team has some type of official mental health training, if not like social workers, peer recovery supporters, mental health first aid responders. And we're using that piece of it along with the art. So mostly spoken word, but we also bring in drawing and dancing and all kind of things into that space. And for us, we have our third year of the Survivors Ball, which is huge for us. It is Los Angeles, California, Chicago, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, and Dallas, Texas, all coming here as the core group that does this planning in Cincinnati, Ohio, that occurs every year. So we have a lot of people coming in for that. Last year was our second year, was the first year we made it absolutely free, because I was determined. I'm like, even if I have to pay this out of my pocket, I want these services to be free, because it's a 2-day, 6 workshops. It's an open mic. This year we're having like a paint and sip as part of it as well. And it's an official dinner where people in the community can nominate survivors for certain awards. So it is just exactly what was done to me by that bookstore, was shutting me out and making me feel like I did not have a space, allowed my purpose to become creating spaces where those stories could be heard, and then preserving those stories through publication and authorship. So it just, another piece of the puzzle that was necessary. So we have that. We also have the Crystal Clear Suicide Prevention Workshop. It probably will be renamed, because I just got back patent information and trademark information that someone else has a name similar. So we don't know. So it may end up being the KC Suicide Prevention Program. But that is something that was created by Regal Rhythms Poetry. It took us 1 year of planning. We had several people who came in as advisors. They came in helping us get it together and fine tune it. So I always shout out everyone. Like, you can go to, right now it's Crystal Clear, RYSTAL, then Clear, CLEAR, suicide prevention on Facebook, and everyone's named and listed. But we have that. We have an organization, Beach Acres, who's been doing mental health for 150 years. They used to be an orphanage. There are our collaborators now, so they're helping us get it off the ground. WordPlay Cincy is as well, and now Children's Hospital is involved as well. So that's a big move to see. They're looking for a model in Ohio that they can go by that is mental health and art combined concerning suicide prevention, and we're determined to be that model for the state.
That's stellar. That is honestly, that's inspiring. And really, when people talk about the importance of art, that is one of the main importances of it, is its ability to allow people who are going through things to share that story through a creative process. Some things are so difficult for people to talk about or process that it could cause association. Yes. It's like reliving the experience all over again. So having a creative outlet to say something in a more creative way allows us to process it. It is very much hand in hand with mental health and just health in general, and being able to tie in the arts. So kudos to you for that. And something else you said is paving your own way, having those doors closed in your face against your opportunity. The way the world is now has not worked, or it has worked up until this point. It's ran its course. Yeah. So anybody that's looking to have that platform or make those changes, quite literally, the path is not there for you. Doors are going to be closed to you. And so the only way is to open your own pathways and your own doors. And that's what you're doing. And you were just awe-inspiring. And I couldn't be happier to have met you, connected with you, and had you on today. This has been my pleasure. If I personally, I work with many artists, international publisher. I'm an author, artist, illustrator, editor myself. If I can be of assistance or be a part of anything that you have going on, I would love to get behind your initiative and help in any way. So please keep that thought in mind at all times. And thank you for everything you do. And with that being said, I will ask the MoPoetry Phillips, do you have any advice that you would leave aspiring authors or just creative minds in general with?
For an aspiring authors, I would just say your story is important. I think, and realize that Black, Indigenous, people of color especially, we're only responsible for 7% of the books that are out here.
Wow.
But almost all of my friends have a manuscript that is ready for publishing. So there is a breakdown in our confidence and our ability to really see ourselves as authors, to really feel like our stories will be appreciated, it'll be heard. And that is what I want to attack the most, that I want to just really drive home that this is leaving a legacy. Like, even if you don't get New York Times bestseller, just to be able to say, this is a book that I published among families. When I pass, I can pass this down to the next generation, and they'll know, okay, Grandma Mo had a book, and this is it. We have to see that as part of like a rite to passage.
Yes.
For another word, it really is, because we need that to continue our healing, to be able to open ourselves up. Because sometimes it does. It opens us up to scrutiny. It opens us up for all kind of things. But I'm all about, I don't care who you are, you have a story to tell. And
yes,
it's important to get that story preserved.
Absolutely. Well, and honestly, we say it all the time, but if I could change one person or inspire one person, it's never just the case that you've only inspired one person, because if you've inspired one person, that person's going to go forward with the inspiration you've given them, and they're going to affect other people, which means by proxy, through that person, you have affected so many more people. So it's never just one person. But you hear stories all the time from presidents and other high profile people. And sometimes those stories include things like they'll tell a story, when I was a kid, I remember there was this local author that came into our 6th grade class, and I'll never forget her. She never became famous. I can't find her book. I don't know who it is, but her name was Martha. And she came in that day and she said something, and she read this passage out of her book, and it changed me forever. And honestly, I'm president today because of that thing she said to me in that book. And that's the power that your book, just by being present and just by existing, could have. So that's important for you to say. Well, and the other thing too is there's not a lot of representation for minorities or groups that aren't part of the status quo or whatever you want to call it. And I've always felt it in my chest, and I've wanted to scream it from the mountaintop sometimes, even for parts of myself that aren't represented in the mainstream. Yeah. When we hear I'm not represented here, they don't put me in these movies, I'm not in write that movie, direct that movie, publish that book. Don't wait for people to put you in there and give you that representation. Take that representation, make yourself seen, make yourself heard. Don't continue to give them the only platform there is. Rise up a platform that is equal or greater to theirs.
Yes.
And that's how we're not going to wait for somebody to give us the spotlight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the people who know how to do more just need to step out and do more. Yes. Like I remember, it hasn't even been a year that I went to my college and I said, I'm disappointed. I have a degree in English, and I wouldn't have known how to publish a book coming out of why is book publishing not an elective? And I talked to my mentor there and I said, how can I make this happen? And she told me I would have to do 6 more months, finish my master's, come back and teach on that level. And I knew right then, I'm like, I don't have time for that per se right now, but I literally made a publishing school for 1/5 of the cost that most publishers cost. You can come in and go through 12 weeks of classes, learn the process beginning to end, and publish yourself so that you can teach the next generation. I just had to work around it. I would at least 3 no's. Like that was a no. That was a no. You're not ready right now. But that doesn't mean other things couldn't happen. And then Sherry Cook Stanford, she's a publisher with Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel. She's helping the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition has added some funding and agreed to allow her to help. Randall Daniels is another publisher, graphic designer. He's involved. Adam Hayden is our book concept person and creator for the covers. Like it took a team of us, and we're still learning. Like this isn't all ironed out. Like we're learning in the process during this pilot, and things are changing. But I see already, so I know it's already done. I see that there's going to be classes full of people who are learning how to publish and then turning around and teaching their families. It's just a matter of time. So
absolutely. Well, and and it's not only going back and finding out how, like you said, you went there and they told you what you would need to do to be able to take that next step, but that didn't work for you time-wise or financial-wise. So what do? You create another way, and that's exactly what you've done. And a lot of times we think that the only path to something is the path that's been laid out already. We don't think, no, that path doesn't work for me. That path works for people who've got all the time in the day. That path works for people who've got all the financial resources. That path works for this person. So I'm going to need to go over here. You ever seen those, that social study they do? It's called Desired Paths, and it's different. It's parks or different public places where the architects had pre-laid the concrete or pre-laid the sidewalks as the intended path for you to walk. But what happens is they'll notice that there'll be parts of the grass that start to wear thin, where people are cutting over from this sidewalk to this sidewalk. And what they've started to notice, rather than, it used to be stay off the grass, they would put these signs up. But what they've noticed now is they use that information to say humans who are traveling this park are telling us that the better pathway is not the one we've designed, but the one that cuts over.
Come on.
So it's called, it's called Desire
Preacher or something, because that's a whole message in there.
Okay. Yeah, so for real, you take these, and that's the thing. It's at college campuses, it's on hospitals, it's at public parks. And before they would get upset because they would say, "We've put the sidewalk there for you. Why don't you use it?" And but now architects and people have started to take into consideration, even colleges, and they'll take an aerial shot of their place, and they'll see these worn paths where people are cutting through. And rather than getting mad, they're saying, let's pull up the concrete and change the path, and let's lay the sidewalk there because the people are telling us that's where they're walking.
Yeah, let's make it a labyrinth. Let's literally make it a labyrinth. Make it extra paths.
Yeah.
Some of us are just naturally drawn to going off of the beaten path.
Yes.
It can feel so restrictive, and just for me, it feels almost demeaning.
Yes.
Like you're telling me
I'm free to walk in. I'm free. I'm a free human being, but I can only walk here and here.
I have to conform to your particular way. I have to be exactly who you need me to be. I have to do it the way you need me to do it. And if we're not careful, what a lot of people don't realize, that way of thinking is what led to racism. It's what leads to these attacks against LGBTQ communities and the discrimination and racism and everything that every community. We can go down the list from the Irish to the Muslim to everyone. If we feel like our way is the only way, then we're not considering someone else has a better way that we haven't figured out yet.
Absolutely. And it's in little ways like that I can see that the world, even when it seems dark and dim and like we have lost our complete way, it's honestly little things like that where we've kind of transitioned from the stay off the grass, these big signs that don't walk here, to developers and architects actually starting to say, wait a minute, humans are telling us that this is a better path for them. Let's pay attention. Let's reroute it. And instead of creating these sidewalks and stuff to fit some perfect right angle, turn left here, turn right there, to be whatever visually appealing, they're now creating them, and they're taking these aerial views. It's this whole study. You can search this. And it's like an aerial view of a college. Instead of having these sharp sidewalks that go everywhere that they've always gone, now you'll see these creative spiderweb looking sidewalks everywhere because they've redesigned them to fit the places that people were traveling. It's called desire paths. And for some reason, desire paths, you look them up and it'll show you examples of where people cut through and make their own paths and shortcuts because it makes more logical sense. And developers and architects are starting to say, hey, that's something to pay attention to. So anyway, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I've kept you almost 45 minutes. I normally only keep folks about 20 minutes, but I have thoroughly, genuinely enjoyed it. I felt like I have just sat in my own living room and shared a moment with a friend. And thank you so much. I'm going to leave us with that. You were the first person that I've asked about the advice for aspiring authors. I think that's something I want to get into, having people share their advice. So Ms. MoPoetry Phillips, thank you so much. I want to really encourage all the viewers to go to, is it Amazon.com?
Yes.
Where we get Equals Greatness. Equals Greatness. Look for that puzzle piece on the front with her popping out of there. I love it. That book there, go get a copy, because this sounds, even from her reading the introduction and then performing that piece, this is a book that I think everyone should have.
And also go to Hit the Mic Cincy, Cincy. Go to our authors page. These are a few of our authors, but I want you, look, I'm all about selling their books too. So
yes, I love it. Yeah, show it.
Multiverse lyrics. Also beautifully flawed, and we have 2 more that are on the way. So
look, and if any of those folks want to have one of these sit downs and talk about their book, I would love to promote each and every one of them. So you send them my contact information, and when they pop in my inbox, we will schedule a time that's good for them, and we will shed some light on their story and their books. So thank you so much. You have a beautiful, wonderful day, and thank you for making the world a better place.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, crazy babies. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Jam Sessions with today's author. Be sure to check out their book and grab a copy. Also, check these great books out. My children's book called Beautiful Boy by Joe Mykut, available on Amazon.com. A great collection of poetry by Alicia Hodge, titled I May Be a Romantic, But I'm Not Hopeless, available on Amazon.com. Another great collection of poetry by Marie Dawn Moldovan titled 20 Years of Winter, also available on Amazon.com. And last but not least, this is the first book, Vocus Animarum, in a series, a 7-book series titled Philly Der Bedlam. Again, this is the first book that is out and available, Vocus Animarum. It's also available on Amazon.com. Be sure to stay tuned. Right after this, I'm going to leave you with a teaser video about that series. The author not only directed and produced this video, but he also created the music that you'll hear in the background. Enjoy.